My next guest is here to help set the record straight on the real story of Thanksgiving and why knowing the truth is important. Would you please welcome the author of The First Thanksgiving, Tracy McKenzie. Tracy, nice to have you here. Welcome.
My pleasure. Thank you, Governor.
We think we know something about Thanksgiving, the Pilgrims and the turkeys and all that stuff. What do we not know?
Well, Governor, we really don't know very much that's accurate, I'm afraid, and it's partly because there's almost no record left of what happened. But if I could just share a few things, that's almost certainly the case.
Are you going to mess this up for us?
I'm sorry. It's almost certainly the case that
we love Thanksgiving, and now you're going to come in here and give us the historically correct version, and we're not even going to want to eat turkey.
You asked for it. So they wouldn't have had turkey, almost certainly. They probably would have had water birds, lots of ducks, geese. In 17th century England, swans were considered a delicacy, so they probably would have had swans, cranes, herons. No pumpkin pie, a lot of cabbage, parsnips, turnips, eel, mussels, clams, but no sweet potatoes, not what we typically associate.
Cornbread dressing?
Probably not, because they didn't have ovens, actually, in 1621.
You've already ruined it. What I want to know, did the Cowboys and the Eagles play football that day? Was that part of the original?
Well, we do know that they had recreation, as the record says, but that was probably something more like races and other kinds of games.
Now, one of the things, Tracy, that we have kind of grown up thinking is that, they had it tough. Half the people died before the first year after coming here on the Mayflower, and that the Thanksgiving was a time to worship and to give God praise and thanks. Is that true? Did that really happen?
Well, they certainly were celebrating. I think the Pilgrims thought that every good thing descended from God. I think they thought of their gathering really as a kind of celebration. I liken it much more to an outdoor barbecue than to anything else in our experience.
Tell us about the relationship that they had with the Native Americans.
Their relationship was positive, but it was somewhat tense, and we sort of lose sight of that. There's no doubt that the Pilgrims were blessed by that relationship in terms of learning agricultural methods and just survival skills.
I guess in a way I'm amazed that it worked out at all.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. We always want to remember as well that the Pilgrims were greatly outnumbered. At that gathering in 1621, for example, there were probably at least 3 times as many Native Americans as there were Pilgrims. So the Pilgrims were very vulnerable. They were defenseless in some ways.
Is there anything about the first Thanksgiving, because that's what your book is all about, the first Thanksgiving, that would really mess us up to know?
One of the things that I would say is that the Pilgrims were actually somewhat suspicious of regular holidays. They thought that Thanksgiving should be a response to a kind of extraordinary intervention of God on their behalf. So they would have held Thanksgivings at different times during the year. In fact, they have one in 1623 in July. So it's not something that they necessarily associated with the same moment on the calendar every year.
Because we think of it as, well, the third Thursday in November, we have Thanksgiving, and because they did. But that's not exactly the way that...
Yeah, and actually they probably didn't even celebrate in November. That's Abraham Lincoln's initiative, not the Pilgrims. What I admire so much about the Pilgrims is that they have this kind of sensitivity, a mindset that God intervenes at all times on their behalf, and they're alert to that and are looking for reasons to acknowledge it.
Well, it's a fun experience to kind of find out what really happened. I think we miss a lot of our American history, and we don't get the real version. But you really haven't messed it up. You haven't ruined it for us. And for that, I'm very grateful. And because you didn't, I'm going to tell people about your book. Tracy's book on the first Thanksgiving, it is available at your favorite online bookseller all over the place. And you can read more of Tracy's writings at our nation's history and all that is about at faithandamericanhistory.wordpress.com. And I hope you'll read it. It's a fun book, and it's a lot of things that you never knew about Thanksgiving. Tracy, thanks very much. Great to have you here.
My pleasure.